Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. My name's Amber. I upload beauty and true crime content. If they're the type of videos that you like to watch, then why not hit that subscribe button and come along and join our little family. And if you're already part of the family, then make sure the notification bell switched on just so you're notified of whenever I upload a video. I just want to do a quick disclaimer that I do in every single video, that I do not mean any disrespect to anyone mentioned in this video, and that this video does contain adult references. So if that makes you feel uncomfortable in any way, then that is fine. This video also does contain child murders. Now I know that can be a little bit sensitive to some people, so there are plenty of other videos on my channel if you want to click off this one at any point. I just want to pre-warn you before we get in. So today we're going to be talking about the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. The Oklahoma Girl Scout murders is actually an unsolved case that occurred on June 13th in 1977 at Camp Scott in Myers County, Oklahoma. The victims were 3 Girl Scouts who were aged between 8 and 10. It's actually interesting that in April, 2 months before the murders, a training session was actually held at Camp Scott. This training session took place over a weekend and it actually come to a premature end, and that was because one of the counsellors' cabins was ransacked and there was a disturbing note discovered inside an empty box of donuts, and there was a handwritten note which actually contained a warning, and it stated, "We're on a mission to kill 3 girls in one tent." Someone had also created an effigy of a man which they hanged from a tree by its neck. While both this note and the effigy seemed very disturbing and upsetting, it didn't really seem to resonate with the counsellors of the camp, and the camp administrators actually just dismissed this as a hoax and a series of tasteless pranks. So on June 13th of 1977, Lori Lee Farmer, who was aged 8, Michelle Heather Goose, who was aged 9, and Doris Denise Milner, who was aged 10, arrived for Girl Scout camp at Camp Scott. That evening at around 6 p.m, the girls who had met earlier in the day for the first time sought shelter from a thunderstorm in tent number 8. This tent was actually located in the camp's Kiwanis unit, which was located the furthest away from the camp counsellor's tent. It was actually partially obscured by the shower block, so it wasn't a tent that was fully visible from all aspects of the camp. The next morning at around 6 a.m, a counsellor on her way to the shower block actually found a girl's body in a sleeping bag in the forest. It was soon discovered that the 3 girls in tent 8 had been murdered. Their bodies had been left in a trail leading to the showers about 150 yards from their tent. Lori and Michelle had been bludgeoned to death, Doris had been killed of strangulation, 2 of the girls had been raped, while the other had been sodomised. After the Girl Scouts were murdered, their corpses were shoved into the sleeping bags and left on the trail approximately 150 yards from the tent that the 3 of them had shared. A large red flashlight was found on top of the girls' bodies, a fingerprint was found on the lens but it's never been identified. A footprint from a 9.5 shoe was also found in blood in the tent. Between 2:30 and 3 a.m. on June 13th, a landowner heard quite a bit of traffic on a remote road near the camp. The following day, Camp Scott was actually evacuated and shut down. The camp, which opened in 1928, remains closed to this day. The site is actually quite frequently visited by ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts who believe that the spirits of the 3 young girls still remain in the area. In the 1980s, however, the Girl Scouts actually sold the camp, and the new owner appears to have done little to nothing with the area. There is literally nothing has changed with the property. There's a picnic table, a stone fireplace and multiple wood tent platforms. They remain on the site, although they have been devoured by weeds and vegetation. You know, nature has took its course and has started to take back the area because nothing's happened with it. On the night the girls were murdered, there were actually several people, campers and counsellors, who heard disturbing noises in Camp Scott. At around 1:30 a.m, multiple people heard moaning sounds coming from the direction of the murdered girls' sleeping quarters. A counsellor investigated the noises but couldn't find the source, so she decided to go back to sleep. Approximately 30 minutes later, a camper in tent number 7 was awoken when someone with a flashlight opened the flap to the tent. At around 3 a.m, a Girl Scout heard a scream come from the section of the camp where tent number 8 was located. At approximately the same time, another camper heard a scream followed by someone crying, "Mama, Mama." Unsure of what to do, the Girl Scout decided to go back to sleep. 10 days after the bodies were discovered, a number of items connected the killings to convicted convicted criminal Jean Leroy Hart. They were found in a cave approximately 3 miles away from Camp Scott. In the cave, law enforcement recovered photographs Jean had developed. Investigators also found a roll of tape and a pair of sunglasses in a vinyl case that had been taken from the counsellor at Camp Scott. Plus, law enforcement recovered pages of a Tulsa newspaper, a section which was discovered stuffed inside a flashlight that was found near the lifeless bodies of the 3 young girls. Jean Leroy Hart had been at large since 1973 after he actually escaped police custody from Mays County Jail 4 years before the 3 girls were murdered. He had been convicted of raping and kidnapping 2 pregnant women, as well as 4 counts of first-degree burglary. After the girls were killed, law enforcement immediately suspected Jean, and they conducted a massive search of the area, including Camp Scott, in an effort to try and capture him. Jean was raised about a mile from Camp Scott, and he was a Cherokee, and I didn't really know what a Cherokee was. Sorry, that sounds like very ignorant of me, but I did my research, and basically is people who are indigenous people of the southeastern woodlands of the United States. Approximately 10 months after the girls were murdered, a tip led to a cabin in Cherokee County. There, Jean was arrested on April 6th of 1978. Jean was represented by Garvin A. Isaacs, a local Oklahoma attorney. He was tried in March 1979, although the local sheriff pronounced himself 1000% sure that Jean was guilty. A local jury acquitted him. The jury found him not guilty, but he did have to return to prison to serve his time for the original crimes he'd committed. He was a convicted rapist and a jail escapee. He still had 305 years of his 308-year sentence left to serve in the Oklahoma State Penitentiary. On June 4th of 1979, he collapsed and died of a heart attack after about an hour of lifting weights and jogging in the prison exercise yard. In addition to biological evidence recovered from the crime scene, authorities also had found semen on a pillowcase, which was discovered near the victims' bodies. In 1989, DNA testing showed 3 of the 5 probes matched Jean's DNA. Statistically, DNA from 1 in 7,700 Native Americans would obtain these results, so it wasn't conclusive. In 2008, authorities conducted new DNA testing on the stains found on the pillowcase, and the results yet again proved inconclusive, but this time it was because the results were too deteriorated to obtain a DNA profile. This meant that Jean wasn't ruled out, and despite being found not guilty, many people do still believe he was responsible for the killings. In 2008, DNA tests were performed on biological evidence collected from the pillowcase, which I did mention, but it did also reveal that there was a partial female DNA profile, and experts determined that this female DNA profile didn't come from 2 of the 3 murder victims. They were unable to conclusively exclude the 3rd as the source of the biological evidence. So while the sample recovered from the pillowcase may belong to one of the murder victims, it is possible that it did come from a woman who may have been present at the time of the murder. One of the victims' mothers, Sherry Farmer, actually told a newspaper that in her gut she'd always had a feeling, like she'd had this gut feeling that there was a female present. And given these DNA results, it does make you wonder if there was a female that had took part in the murders. In 1989, Reverend Gerald Manley contacted the authorities, and this was to come forward to say that he thought 4 men were responsible for the murders. He actually come forward and provided 2 names of men that he thought were responsible for the murders, and he said that they had killed the girls, but police officials investigated this tip and they couldn't link the men to the murders. Gerald had said that he'd gone to Camp Scott with 4 men whom he'd claimed needed a Christian influence, and he saw the body of one of the girls and 2 sleeping bags that appeared to contain corpses of the other 2 girls. Police have been unable to corroborate the Reverend's story. He did pass a lie detector test when questioned about his claims, and he has provided the same account under hypnosis. No one has ever been convicted of the murders, and many people are confident that Jean Leroy Hart did murder the girls, despite a jury finding him not guilty. There is speculation that people believe Jean was not found guilty because he was a former high school football star and a Cherokee. According to Bette Milner, Denise Milner's mother, after Jean was acquitted, people actually cheered and rejoiced. So he was clearly like someone who was respected, even though he had this criminal past. After Michelle Geyser's death, her father, Richard Goose, helped establish the Victims' Bill of Rights in Oklahoma, as well as the Oklahoma Trauma Victims Compensation Board. I think that is amazing that they've done that. Out of all like the bad that's come in this situation, I think it's nice to have such good to come out of it. Laurie Farmer's mother, Sherry Farmer, founded the Oklahoma chapter of Parents of Murdered Children, which is an organisation that's dedicated to providing assistance and support to families of homicide victims. So I think it's nice that 2 of the parents have gone and done something really good, because at least there's some good to come out of such an absolutely horrific situation. Personally, I just think Gene's responsible for this. Like, all of that evidence, it just doesn't make any sense as to why it wouldn't be him. That's just me. Like, I do think that he was involved. I just think there's too much evidence to point to him, and I just think it's awful because I don't feel like these parents are ever going to fully get justice, because I don't think anyone will ever be prosecuted for this. I don't know how they can develop the case any further. You know, they've already tried to further test DNA and it's diminished too much for them to be able to. So I don't know how they could prosecute anyone in this case now. I don't know how they can develop the evidence any further unless someone was to come forward and say, look, I know who's responsible, or I am responsible for the murders. I don't know that they'll ever solve this case, and I think it's so sad. These 3 young girls who had their full life ahead of them just murdered, like when they're in a, you know, it's a Girl Scout camp, it's somewhere that they felt safe, they, you know, they were there to have a good time. I just think it's absolutely awful. I would love to know your thoughts and theories on this case. Let me know that down below, and I shall see you in the next one. Mwah. Thanks so much for watching.